Welcome to the Ask Junior Daily Judgment podcast. I'm Priya Sharma, and joining me today is Arjun Gupta.
Hello, everyone. We're excited to dive into today's important judgment. But before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast if you enjoy our daily legal breakdowns.
That's right. Your support helps us reach more listeners and continue providing in-depth analysis of the latest court decisions. Now let's get started with today's cases.
Today's case, State of Andhra Pradesh versus Dr. Rao VBJ Chelakani, is a fascinating one. It centers around a land allotment policy that the Supreme Court of India has declared unconstitutional, calling into question the very concept of how the state can distribute resources.
This judgment is not just about land. It really gets to the heart of how our government functions and the balance between its power and our fundamental right to equality. Let's break down the facts, shall we?
The Andhra Pradesh government, in 2005, rolled out this ambitious land allotment policy. The intention was to address the growing need for housing, particularly for other deserving sections of the society.
Other deserving sections. That's a bit vague, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's where the controversy starts. The policy favored a specific category of individuals: judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, members of Parliament, members of the state legislature, All India Services officers, and journalists.
Wait, journalists? That's quite an interesting inclusion.
It is, and it highlights the broad spectrum of individuals covered by this policy. But here's the kicker. These individuals were eligible for land at basic rates, which is far lower than the prevailing market value.
So the government was effectively giving away land to a privileged few who already enjoy significant advantages at a heavily discounted price. That doesn't sound very equitable.
Exactly. The Supreme Court, led by Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna, saw this policy as a blatant violation of Article 14 of the Constitution, which guarantees equality before the law and the equal protection of laws.
Article 14 is a cornerstone of our Constitution, and the court has been very clear that it's not just about formal equality, but about substantive equality. That means ensuring fairness and justice in actual outcomes, not just on paper.
The court laid down a stringent test for determining the validity of such policies: the reasonable classification test. This test has two parts. First, the classification must be based on an intelligible differentia, which means there must be a real difference between the group that receives the benefit and the group that doesn't. Second, there must be a rational nexus between the classification and the object of the policy. That means the difference between the groups must be relevant to the goal the policy is trying to achieve.
So the court was essentially asking, does the government have a legitimate reason for giving preferential treatment to these specific groups? And is that reason connected to the policy's objective?
Precisely. In this case, the Supreme Court found that the government's justification for favoring these groups was not only lacking, but also inherently discriminatory. The court pointed out that the policy was not geared towards the poor or the truly marginalized sections of society, but towards those who are already well off and enjoy social and economic advantages.
This brings us to the concept of arbitrariness, which the court strongly emphasized. The court found that the policy was not based on any rational principle, but rather on a capricious and irrational approach that favored a select few.
This judgment is a strong rebuke to the government's tendency to distribute resources in a way that perpetuates existing inequalities. The court, by emphasizing the need for substantive equality, has made it clear that the state cannot use its discretionary power to favor the already privileged at the expense of the disadvantaged.
The court's analysis went beyond just the classification test. It also delved into the concept of indirect discrimination, where seemingly neutral policies can disproportionately impact certain groups.
The court observed that policies like this one, even though they might appear to be applied equally to all, can actually perpetuate prejudice and stereotypes. It's not just about what the policy intends to do, but about its actual impact.
The court's judgment is a significant step towards ensuring that our government truly acts as a trustee of the people's resources. The court has not only struck down this particular policy, but has set an important precedent for future land allotment policies.
The court's decision highlights the need for a multi-pronged approach to equality, where we consider not just formal classifications, but also the impact of the policy and its potential to perpetuate inequality.
This judgment is a reminder that the right to equality is not just an abstract concept, but a living principle that must be actively upheld by our institutions. It's about ensuring that everyone, regardless of their social or economic status, has a fair chance to participate in and benefit from our society.
We hope you found our discussion informative. Don't forget, this is just one of many crucial legal decisions we analyze on the Ask Junior Daily Judgment podcast. We invite you to join us daily for a deeper dive into the legal landscape.
And that wraps up our analysis of today's judgments. We hope you found our discussion informative and engaging.
Before we sign off, we'd like to remind our listeners once again to like, subscribe, and share our podcast. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue bringing you daily updates on the most important legal decisions.
Absolutely. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow for another exciting episode. Until then, this is Priya Sharma.
And Arjun Gupta, signing off. Thanks for listening to the Ask Junior Daily Judgment podcast.